Hi, my name is Clay Allen. I'm in the Atlanta office of Old Capital Lending, and you may know us as a national lender in the multifamily industry. And indeed, you're correct. We close a lot of loan volume with our clients across the U.S. Every year. However, we also spend a considerable amount of time putting together value-added content for those of you who are in the industry itself, or maybe exploring getting into multifamily investing. So to that end, I've been putting together some videos on the topic of asset management, kind of things that go on after you close the deal. And this is the fifth video, I believe. This one's on site visits. Reason being is that was my favorite part of the job, is site visits, is getting out and seeing the property and all. But I think there needs to be a little bit more intentionality applied behind that. You might be thinking there's no need for a full video on the site visit. All you need to do is go make sure the property's not falling down, shake some hands, and get back to your day job. Well, there's definitely more purpose behind it. We'll get into that in the next slide here. But I wanted to finish out this video with some pictures that I've taken, some actual pictures on site visits that I think might provide some context behind what I'm saying here. And keep in mind, the pictures that I'm going to show you were announced site visits. The asset manager coming to tour the property, so you might be a little bit surprised by some of them. So hang in there. We'll get into those in a few minutes here. But get into the purpose of the site visit. You may remember going back to maybe 2 or 3 videos ago, I put together an illustration of where the asset manager sits in the organization. And the best illustration I could give, really on the right-hand side, was the property management team, the property itself. And the left-hand side, you had what I call the capital market side. That's the executives of the company, maybe the sponsor that you're a part of, the owners, investors in the property, and the lenders, right? So they are looking, the capital markets team, they're looking to you as the asset manager to be their eyes and ears on the property, to hold the property team accountable, right? They want you to carry out the business plan that we all signed up for. And so part of that is being on site to ensure that it is happening. Now, the property management team knows that. They see you as a corporate presence. And so they fully expect you to kind of come by from time to time to kind of hold them accountable, to hold their feet to the fire, to making sure things are done, that the property looks good. That's probably the biggest reason why we conduct site visits. But another reason would be to address any ongoing issues. So I think the last video, I believe it was the last video, I did one on key performance indicators. And maybe you've been monitoring a KPI, a weekly KPI or a monthly KPI, and there's something you didn't like, right? Or maybe it's financial statements. You've been going over in expenses on a particular line item. It's not being fixed. You've raised it up to the regional manager, and for whatever reason, it's just not being fixed. Well, coming out on site and sitting down with whoever has the ability to get that issue cured, sitting down with them, whether it's the property manager or the maintenance director or whoever it is, and having a conversation kind of raises the urgency a little bit. All of a sudden, corporate's on site and they want this issue addressed. Now, your job is not to be intimidating and to kind of just press in on them. Well, I mean, maybe to a degree it is, but not to be bad cop necessarily. But what your role really is to bring a toolbox that you have as an asset manager. Okay, property manager, I understand we've had this issue. I know you've struggled to get over it. What can I do to help? Do you need more money? Do we need to divert some funds away from one line item to another? More than happy to give you the tools that you need to get over this issue. You got to kind of go into it with the mindset that we're all on the same team. We all want to see this issue fixed. So addressing any ongoing issues goes a long way when you're doing that on site. Then finally, market intelligence. The thing I want to say about market intel is, I said in the prior video that you kind of want to keep an eye on what's going on in the immediate area, right? So going to your property, touring the comps, going up and down the street, you'll get a feel for how the area is looking. And is it going downhill? Are you seeing broken windows, if you will, the broken windows theory? Are you seeing any kind of positive momentum? Maybe it's a zoning sign for a future large scale development that's going to add a lot of value to their property. Just being on top of that will really go a long way, and it gives you the ability to go ahead and communicate directly and immediately with your upline, with the let's say the investors and the lenders, and provide some good news from time to time. In the same manner too, though, not just seeing the property, getting market intel would be going and see the competitive properties and understanding how they stack up against your property. So those are 3 reasons why I think it's important to conduct these site visits and things that you should keep in mind while you're on site. All right, here's some recommendations. Before I do that, actually, I want to go down to the bottom. There's a tip there. If you have an iPhone, I think it works on Android as well, download Site Audit Pro. That's just a free app, and it allows you to go on your phone, create a report, take pictures, and they call it issues, I believe. You can, on the issues, you just type in what you're seeing, what you might want see to be addressed. It might be something good, actually. It might be something that you just want to pass along and say, hey, great job. Just saw how clean this landscaping looked, whatever. But it's a great program. You can do all that within the app, close it out, and then send an email with a PDF of the report to anybody you want. So it's a great tool. Go ahead and download it. All right. So the focus, what should you focus on when conducting the site visit? There's 4 things: drive up, leasing center, tour route, and the model, or say a ready unit, available unit to be leased. So starting with the drive up. First of all, put yourself in the place of a prospect, or say a resident that's coming back from work, right? When you drive up to the property, you're kind of looking at the monument sign. Does everything look welcoming, inviting, clean, very presentable? So if you have a monument sign that's kind of old and needs to be addressed, maybe even replaced, let's go ahead and budget some money to do that. This is the very first impression that your prospect is going to get. This is the recurring impression that your existing resident is going to have when they are deciding whether or not to re-up their lease, right? So make sure that the entryway is clean. It's free of clutter and trash. The landscaping is great. The grass is mowed. The ground cover is down, whether it's pine straw or mulch. This should really be a high focus area. So just keep that in mind. Pretend to be the prospect as you drive up. You're driving up to the leasing center. With that in mind, you're going to get out of the car and maybe take a minute or two, just do a 360, look all around you, take it all in, see if there's anything that needs to be addressed. Now, you might be thinking, the prospect's not going to do that. They're not going to get out of their car and do a 360 and check boxes to make sure everything's just pristine. Fair enough. But they are in the back of their mind, in the periphery. All that stuff is, they're seeing stuff that they don't even know they're seeing. And that's feeding into their decision that they're going to make. Do I rent here, or do I rent down the street at the property I just came from? So being on your game, paying a lot of attention and putting a lot of focus on the cleanliness, the appearance, all of that really plays into the decision. So when you walk up to the leasing center, you're looking at things for like cobwebs, looking for any kind of signs of wood rot. You're looking for lights that are out, chipped paint, whatever it may be. You know what to do. A good rule of thumb is pretend you're having a party at your house tonight and you want it looking really clean, really great. Every day you're having a party at your property, and that party is consisted of a person or 2 or 3 prospects who might lease with you that day. And so they're trying to make a decision. Do I spend $1,400 at this property for the next 12 months, $1,400 a month for the next 12 months? That's up to you, I think, as the team member. So challenge your team members to keep a very clean, pristine appearance on the drive up and the walk up to the leasing center. Similar story inside the leasing center. Now, one thing I've done in the past, and this sounds a little bit, kind of gotcha-ish. It's not meant to be, but when you travel, you might have to catch up on emails and all that. So I would do that. I would take that opportunity in the leasing center, and sometimes I just kind of sit and listen or watch our team members or leasing agents just to see how inviting they were and how the prospect was treated. Either they were walking in through the door or they were calling in on the phone. And I would just kind of pay attention. If there was anything that I saw that was concerning, I would certainly point it out to the regional manager. And I would say, look, do you mind addressing this? I wouldn't take it directly to the leasing agent. They don't report to me, right? They report to the regional manager. I'm just the eyes and ears of the owner. So I see a problem, I'm going to go to the person who, is their boss, if you will. So that's typically how you should handle it, I believe. But look out for those things. Look to see how the prospect's treated. Are they being treated as primary, or are they being treated as a secondary element in the room? So I did that in a property in a former job, and we had a well-seasoned leasing consultant, and I noticed that he would just sit behind his computer typing as a prospect walked up. And I saw this on a number of occasions, actually, 2 different visits, probably 3 times. And just the prospect would walk up and all the way up to the desk. And at that point, he would finally kind of look up and not stand up and not even greet him like by shaking his hand. He would just kind of sit there. And so kind of drove me crazy. I had to reach out to the regional manager, and we got it corrected after a while. But those are the kind of things that you are there not to, you can't do that every day, right? But you are there to point those things out and say, we're seeing, the owner is seeing these things. And so we want it corrected as the ownership. All right. The tour route, this is a very biggie, right? Again, keep in mind your prospect is always deciding whether or not they're going to rent from you. All right. From the second they drive on the property. And as you walk through, you're going to be walking through some areas that are kind of the centerpiece of the community, the primary gathering spaces. So it could be the fitness center, this blown out fitness center that's really great and competitive in the market. It could be a really nice pool, and it could be a great grilling station, outdoor kitchen. And as nice as those things, those amenities might be, if they're dirty and not kept well, they might as well be from the 1970s if they show bad. So you want to make sure that those things are always showing good. Now, here's the challenge for your on-site team. They see it every single day. So after a while, this is natural. I would be the same way. After every single day of being on site, you're going to start to overlook things that don't really look great, right? So you want to point those things out as a fresh set of eyes as the asset manager when you are touring the property. So be quick to point those things out in a very careful and non-confrontational way, but a firm way. Again, you're the owner, so keep that in mind. We're always looking at the same stuff, ground cover, landscaping, but when you're saying the area of the pool, you're looking for any kind of leaves in the pool, looking at the pool deck, are the pool lounge chairs, are they all lined up? Are the pool pillows, are they grungy? Are they mildewy? Do they need to be cleaned? Do they need to be replaced? I can promise you, you're probably gonna be replacing pool pillows at least every couple of years, if not every year. In some climates, you'll be doing it every year. But those are the things you want to be looking at, just to make sure it looks very nice, it's welcoming. And again, it's not just for the prospect, it's for your resident who's looking to either move or stay. So that's your tour route. Now for the model or the available ready unit, I'll get to the next page and talk a little bit about the model. So let's kind of stick with the available ready unit. On that, you might want to employ a kind of an interesting strategy I think someone had when I was at another company. And one of our partners, he would come on site and he would just go on the website on his smartphone. And he'd flip through and he'd look through the available units and he'd say, take me to this unit. I want to see this one. And what was kind of good about that is it really kept the team on their toes. They knew that at that point, that unit had to have been cleaned. In fact, I think the vernacular for it in the multifamily space is sparkled, like a sparkling, if you will, is when the team goes in in the morning, they're not doing a deep clean of the unit, but they're just dusting, they're making, maybe vacuuming, making sure it just looks very presentable in case a prospect wants to visit that particular unit. So he would go through and he would just pick one. And that works very well. I would employ that if you get on site and you start touring properties or touring units. One good example of that, I had a property here in Midtown Atlanta, really nice property. We were doing a heavy value add on it, and the value add looked fantastic. I mean, I remember walking in the unit, and I was just wowed. I was like, this looks really good. I'm very excited about it. And I went and I put my hand on the countertop, this nice new granite countertop. And I picked my hand up, it was just full of dust. And it was probably sheetrock dust and whatnot from all the heavy lifting from the renovation itself. But the cleaners missed it. I think they cleaned everything else and just forgot to dust. So those types of things, when you find that as an asset manager, that kind of puts the property manager on notice or the maintenance team on notice, like, oh man, we just really missed that. We need to make sure we don't let that happen again, right? Again, your job is not to come down on them for something like that, things we missed. Your job is simply to say, look, I'm the owner just visited and the owner just saw this. We need to make sure it doesn't happen again. So, all right, I'm going to move on here. We're going to go to the model unit. And this is kind of a funny slide when we're talking about the model unit. But one thing that my former company employed, and I thought was a very good tactic is to focus on the five senses. And we'll start with smell here. I'll just kind of go around, hit 3 or 4 of them. When you go into a model unit, one thing that really, really bugged me was walking into a model unit and having this overwhelming smell of potpourri. You could tell it's a smell that many people like, but not everyone likes. And someone liked it too much, and it was just overpowering. It's like it hit you in the face. It's almost as if they were trying to cover up weed smell or some other smell and overcompensate for it. And that's not just one instance, it happens all the time. And so, make sure that you're not overpowering the whole property. You don't want there to be an objection immediately as you walk into the one unit that's supposed to sell a prospect on a property, right? So in some cases, some people employ like a eucalyptus smell or some type of soft scent that is not objectionable to almost anybody. So keep that in mind. It's not your job to pick out the scent, right? But just make sure that it's not overwhelming. Hearing. When you walk in, this is a biggie for me. And I bet if any of the property managers that I used to work with are listening to this, they're probably going to laugh because I really spent a lot of time on this. I really appreciate a really good sound system, if you will. I've had properties where we've kind of done things on the cheap, not by my direction, but they wanted to save some money. So they put in a 1970s clock radio behind a photo maybe, and they just had the local radio station playing, and it sounded like it was coming out of a 1-inch speaker, right? I would suggest going out and buying a $200 not wave radio, what do you call it? A Bose speaker, like a portable Bluetooth speaker or something of the like. It pumps out really quality sound. It just sounds so much better. Remember, I'm going to keep coming back to this. Your model unit is the unit that's going to sell your prospect. Make it look and sound the best. And so don't do one of these 1970s clock radios. That's horrible. Even worse, don't have nothing. I mean, just have a good system in place, a good sound system or whatever it is. Make it sound really good. In fact, I would avoid even the TV. And I'll tell you what, I'll go ahead and jump a little bit over to eyesight. Let's go to the TV. The TV should be on at all times, but I don't think the TV should be playing music or words or anything like that. We don't want to see commercials being played. We don't want to see CNN or Fox News necessarily. We want to see something very benign channel, maybe Food Network. That's my prior employer had a policy of always having it on Food Network, whether it's in the clubhouse or the model unit. I think that's a great idea. Very benign, very non-abrasive type of visual. And in the background, you have this really nice sounding music, right? So, again, it's not stale when you walk in. You have sight, you have motion, you have really quality music being played. And one other thing here, I'll just touch on taste. And what I want to go towards with that would be what they call the wow fridge. If you're not familiar with the term a wow fridge, it's when you open up the refrigerator and you're just wowed by all the stuff that's in there. So when you have a property, I don't care if it's a Class C workforce type housing product or a Class AA product, mid-rise in the middle of Miami, always have a stocked fridge and the freezer. Make sure that you have a lot of different varieties of stuff, snacks, drinks, and maybe just a lot of different sodas, waters, and I would say some good stuff, not just your Costco water necessarily, or Kirkland water. Make sure you have well-known branded drinks, snacks, and all that. Have also some healthy options. Just have something available that will create that little sense of dopamine, if you will, in the brain as they're trying to make a decision whether or not to rent the unit or rent at this particular property. One story around that. I used to have a property in Atlanta, kind of in the South Buckhead, Midtown area, right down the road. In fact, walking distance to a really popular craft brewer. And so we went ahead and got some beers, some IPAs, and we stocked the fridge, not just beers, but we had sodas and waters, and we also had some craft beers with their label on it, and that created a discussion topic. They open up the prospect opens up the refrigerator, and they're going to automatically say something about, in this case, I think it was Sweetwater Brewery. It might say something about, oh, you have a Sweetwater. It's like, yeah, the Sweetwater is just right down the road, and you can walk right to it. Oh, really? Yeah, they have events every Tuesday. All of a sudden, it's just another discussion topic and selling point for the prospect. Things like that, things that you can kind of plant within the unit, if done strategically, can help create further opportunities to sell the property and sell the unit. So that's the model unit. And let me move on here. These are some pet peeves of mine. Sloppy pool deck, we talked about. Dirty grills, I can't remember if I mentioned that or not, but that would be when the grills aren't being cleaned on a nightly basis, or really every morning. Typically the maintenance team should be looking at that and making sure that it's cleaned. So the grill grates are not kind of rusted out and remains of burgers on it and stuff. Disengaged team members, we kind of talked about. We just want to make sure they're kind of engaged and treating the prospect as a primary, not a secondary. Dust in the toured units, I gave you that example. Empty dog stations, that I have a picture of that in a minute. That's a pet peeve of mine. If you're going to have a dog station, they're not the most attractive things in the first place, but if it's always empty of bags, and if the trash is overflowing with stuff, that's horrible. Your residents don't want to see that, and you surely don't want to show that to your prospect as you're walking through the property. We just talked about the model unit, the overwhelming sense, and the wow fridge that might be lacking. Fake TVs and computers, I think that one is just kind of funny to me, because I can't understand why anyone would do that. No offense to any of you who have fake TVs and computers in your model unit. I've seen it all too often, and you know what it looks like to me? It looks like a fake TV and a fake computer, a piece of cardboard. And I don't want the prospect walking in to a unit that's supposed to sell you and it just looks cheap. I mean, that tells me that the property is cheap. Put in a really nice, go spend $500 at Walmart on a nice big 50-inch TV. It's going to put out a really great video or picture, and it's quality. I promise you, it's worth the $500. Don't do fake TVs and computers. All right, you can tell that as a pet peeve of mine. So here are some pictures. I want to kind of walk through some of these, and this is not to point out any particular properties or personnel or anything like that, of course. But I did want to show you some things that kind of bugged me on some site visits. Starting here on the left-hand side, you can tell this is kind of on a pretty steep hill. You have the property up here. And so obviously we had to divert some water away from the hill to prevent erosion. And the way it was done, though, and I don't know if this was us or a prior owner, they just threw they went down to Home Depot and got this, this plastic drain and threw it on top of the pine straw and just empties out into a parking place where someone might park. Looks horrible, right? It just looks sloppy. So why not bury the thing? I know it's a little bit extra work and we might have to hire someone to do that, but it's much better to go underneath the ground, punch through the curb cut and let it drain. And then you see here, I mean, this is just, I don't know why this is here. It must have come from another area and someone it's probably from up here. And they probably just ripped it out and threw it here in the bush. And the reason I circled this is not because it's there, it's because it's been there. In other words, we've had our property teams walking and driving past it and have not picked it up. And I can guarantee you that's been there for a while. Going to the next picture over here, same story. Look how it's not just the fact that there's a bottle laying in the landscaping here, in the flower bed. It's that it's halfway buried. That means that there's been some erosion over it. There's been some dirt kind of building up over it. So we're starting to collect antiques on our property, and we're not cleaning up after ourselves. So how long has that been there, right? Moving on, I talked to you about the pet stations, my pet peeves. This always happens. I see that quite a bit, and frankly, it just needs to be addressed more often than not. All the bags are missing. There's never a bag in here. In this case, just overflowing trash. I mean, is this what you want to come home to? Of course not. And so that's you as the asset manager, or you're just walking through, looking at this stuff and saying, is this where I want to live? Is this how I want, is this how I want it to look? Over here is an abandoned car. You can't really tell from this picture. It's not too bad, but getting closer up is really full of dust. You can kind of see it here in the back. And it's backed in. Sometimes you'll notice some cars that are abandoned, they'll be backed in so as not to show the license plate. And so just keep that in mind. A lot of times your property teams are looking at that as well, or they are trained to look at that. But again, they are on site day after day after day. And sometimes these things just kind of get embedded in their mind and they kind of put it out of sight, out of mind. They just kind of drive past it. I probably would do the same thing, but again, you're the fresh set of eyes. You're there to kind of point some of these things out in a very nice manner. All right, to the left-hand side here, you have a pool. It's a green, and you got leaves, a lot of leaves on the bottom. Now, I put my angry face down there, and for good reason. This was an announced visit, and this was, I believe pool season was already open on this one, or it's like right around the corner, maybe within a week. So it doesn't matter if the pool season was open or not. It never should look like this. And the excuse you'll hear more often than not when you see a green pool or something like this, oh, we had a storm last night and the chemicals were all off balance. And you know what, there's probably some truth to that. Believe me, I understand that. But I've heard that excuse a lot in the past. So things like that are completely unacceptable. And I promise you, your regional agrees with you. Your senior regional agrees with you. You're on the same team. So, you know, when I saw this, took the picture, I left the property, pulled over, and I sent them a site audit pro report showing all the things that I saw and say, look, we got to get onto this immediately. And within a week, I want all of this corrected. And so we did, and things got looking a lot better. So this bottom right picture here, you know, this actually obviously is a nice property. I think this was built in 2015. This one's down in Orlando. So I shouldn't have even included this, frankly, because it looks so nice and so good. The reason I did, though, is when you look at nicer properties, one thing to keep in mind as an asset manager is you're going to have to go ahead and resign yourself to the fact that when you are a newer property and you have supply in your market, you're going to have to stay brand new because your competition will always be brand new if you have properties that are being delivered all the time. In this case, you have some loungers. They're sitting in the pool by design. That's what they're supposed to do. But when you get up closer to them, I should have gotten up closer to them. They are starting to look dingy. They're starting to rip a little bit. And I think in this case, they were maybe 2 years old, but they were ready to be either refitted with new material or be replaced altogether. Also, these cabanas here, it's hard to tell, but they got very mildewy in that type of environment, very humid year round, right? And so as good as that looks, it looks really bad to these guys living up here on the top floor, looking down on a cabana that's just full of mildew. And these guys up the top, they're going to be making a decision in the next 2, 3, 4 months whether or not they want to stay at this property or go to a brand new, nice new property that's offering 2 months of concessions, 2 months of free rent. So that's why you always have to stay on your game. And so I point this out to you because, again, you're just have to, when you go into a nice property, you just going to have to know that you will be spending more on recurring capital to keep things nicer more often than you would a property with a little bit more age on it. All right. Last picture here, and this is the same property that I just mentioned in another area. A lot of sitting rain water, or it could be sprinkler water, but it's standing nonetheless, and a little bit of ground cover washout. These bushes here were meant to be ground cover and just didn't take. These are things that you've got to address. One thing that you might have noticed over here, this is a lounger, what do you call that? Hammock. And a hammock is supposed to be the most inviting thing in the world, right? You just want to go sit on one, lay in it, and read a book or whatever. Not this one. It is filled with green mildew and algae. This should not have happened, frankly, especially at this property. What's concerning is you have people who live right here who walk past that every single night, every single morning when they're going to work, people who live above it and looking down on top of it. So those are the things that you just have to stay on top of all the time. So anyway, that's it. That's some pictures. I have plenty of more pictures and would be more than happy to talk about this topic or anything asset management or debt for that matter. So if you have any questions or want to just talk about any of those things, please feel free to give me a call, shoot me an email. More than happy to have this discussion. Appreciate you hanging with me through all these asset management videos. I might have 1 or 2 more coming, and I will see you on the next one. Thanks. Bye.